Welcome to worship in the Unitarian Universalist Church of Charlotte. It's common to separate the workings of the body from the workings of the soul. The body, the home of life's mundane and necessary functioning. The soul, the seat of mystery and connection with something more than our individual selves. It's easy in the course of the daily routine to lose track of the symbiotic give and take between the physical and the spiritual. Reflecting on the tendency to separate the realm of the body and the realm of the soul, Rainer Maria Rilke once wrote, "I am not one of those who neglect the body in order to make of it a sacrificial offering for the soul, since my soul would thoroughly dislike being served in such a fashion." He concludes, "After all, the soarings of my mind begin in my blood." In celebration of the intertwining of body and soul, we worship together. Welcome all. Please turn as we prepare to sing and welcome the people around you.
touch can light the flame, which gives a brightness to the day. The Spirit uses mortal flame, life's vehicle for work and play. We light this chalice, symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith.
Welcome again to today's service. We're happy that you're with us in this room or joining us remotely. We're pleased to have guests with us. Our members would like to greet you personally following the service. So if you are visiting, please raise your hand and keep it up. Members, take note of visitors seated near you. After the service, invite them to join you for coffee and conversation in Freeman Hall. Should it enhance your experience of future services, you can find both a large print order of service and a personal hearing assistance device on the table at the entrance to the sanctuary. There's also an elevator available. If you'd like to learn more about us, please fill out a yellow card and place it in an offering basket later in the service. Members with a life event to share can do so on the reverse side of the card. The cards and offering envelopes are on clipboards at the end of the row. Please begin passing them now. Visitors interested in hearing about how to become a member can talk with our membership coordinator, Kelly Green. Her contact information is on the back of your order. Again, to each of you, welcome.
Our first reading today is by Rabbi Bradley Artson, a teacher and writer in the conservative tradition of Judaism. This is from his essay, "The Body is the Glory of the Soul." There is a more integrated view which understands that the world around us is not merely a source of degradation and temptation, but in fact one of God's greatest gifts to us. We are invited to delight in the senses we have been given and in the world into which we have been born. And because of that wonderful gift, this integrated view of embodied soulfulness urges us to recommit ourselves now and through the years to the renewal of God's creation, to the repair of a broken world, one body at a time, one person at a time.
Our next reading is by poet and former war correspondent Yusuf Komunyakaa. Komunyakaa was born James William Brown, and later in life he reclaimed his grandfather's African name, Komunyakaa. And here is his poem, Anodyne. I love how it swells into a temple where it is held prisoner, where the god of blame resides. I love slopes and peaks, the secret paths that make me selfish. I love my crooked feet, shaped by vanity and work shoes made to outlast belief. The hardness coupling milk it can't fashion. I love the lips, salt and honeycomb on the tongue. The hair holding off rain and snow. The white moons on my fingernails. I love how everything begs blood into song and prayer. A ghost hums through my bones like Pan's midnight flute, shaping internal laws beside a troubled river. I love this body, made to weather the storm in the brain, raised out of the deep smell of fish and water hyacinth, out of rapture and the first regret. I love my big hands. I love my body clear down to the soft, quick motor of each breath, the liver's 10 kinds of desire, and the kidney's lust for sugar. This skin, this sack of dung and joy. This spleen floating like a compass needle inside nighttime, always divining West Africa's dusty horizon. I love the birthmark posed like a fighting cock on the right shoulder blade. I love this body, this solo and ragtime jubilee behind the left nipple, because I know I was born to wear out at least 100 angels. It's not always easy to celebrate our bodies as Yusuf Komunyakaa does, finding rapture in the white moons of our fingernails and the soft, quick motor of each breath. Depending on the day, our bodies may remind us most of our limitations. If we're sick, if we've lost movement we once had, if we grow increasingly grumpy after skipping lunch, if our joints ache, or we can't remember for love or money why we've just walked into the kitchen. The body is our connection to the most animal aspect of our nature. Bodies get hungry, they need sleep, they need to use the bathroom. It may seem to follow then that the soul is something separate and utterly distinct from the body, a sacred animating force unsullied by the body's experiences, distant from our carnal life. Deeper spiritual consciousness untouched by the worldly, unchanged by the physical. The relationship between body and soul is a matter of debate in the generations-long conversation between Jewish leaders and scholars known as the Talmud. Medieval philosopher Rabbi Moses Maimonides wrote in favor of a stark distinction between body and soul. He said, "You have the potential to greatness. Your soul, which is incorporeal, not of the body, your soul knows only the divine. But it is placed in a body that is turgid and dark and weak with all kind of carnal desires. It is because of the flesh that you sin. It is because of the flesh that you err." Maimonides argues that it's the experience of the body that pulls us away from the path of morality, the path of goodness. The body distracts us as a stumbling block to spiritual living. Rabbi Bradley Artson pushes back against Maimonides, quoting 1st century Rabbi Eleazar ben Azariah, who said, "A person should always see themselves as if holiness resided within their intestines." Put more elegantly, Rabbi Artson continues, "God is to be found in each and every flower, in every breath of air you take, and in the people sitting around you. The world around us is not merely a source of degradation and temptation," Artson says, "but in fact, one of God's greatest gifts to us. We are invited to delight in the senses we have been given and in the world into which we have been born." Artson argues that the body's experience of the physical world leads us deeper into a way of life that reflects the divine. Like Rabbi Artson, our Unitarian Universalist forebears embraced a spirituality that understood a more symbiotic relationship between body and soul. Our spiritual forebears chose to focus their attention on this world, on this life, and that makes the experience of being human holy. I have my own thoughts about what happens to the soul after death, and perhaps you do as well. Yet collectively, as a people of faith, we focus our attention on the world we can touch, taste, and see. Our bodies are our means of experiencing and participating in this world. Our bodies provide the circuitry board through which we make contact with mystery and the means by which we respond with awe and gratitude. This configuration of bones and synapses and skin is our living workshop for making meaning out of our experiences. Our bodies long for connection with loved ones and for connection with communities. Our bodies help us translate language and touch into a sense of being loved or a sense of belonging. Rather than hindering us spiritually, our bodies help us connect with and honor what and who we hold most dear. It's the physical experience of this world that helps us connect with and better know our own souls. Matthew Sanford is a highly sought-after yoga instructor. Sanford discovered yoga after a decade of feeling isolated, cut off from his own body after a horrific car accident left him paralyzed from the chest down at age 13. Slowly, Sanford described the way his yoga practice helped him experience again the connection between his mind, body, and soul. In his memoir, Sanford writes, "I have never seen anyone truly become more aware of their body without also becoming more compassionate. As you're more in your body," he says, "you feel more connected to people. You think about the importance of other life." And Sanford concludes, when you're part of the world, it's much harder to not feel compassion about the world. Rather than being distant and detached from the experiences of the body, the soul is shaped by them. The body is not a distraction from the spiritual quest to live by our highest ideals. The body is how we bring the soul's empathy and compassion to life. It's our bodies that allow us to take the hand of someone who is suffering or to march in the streets to call out an injustice. In an essay entitled "Embodied Spirituality," Krista Tippett writes, "We need our bodies to claim our souls. Our bodies are access points to mystery and connection." And Tippett says, "The body is where every virtue lives or dies." Once, while meeting with a couple to finalize the details of their wedding ceremony, they asked me if I would include toward the end of the ceremony a blessing for their hands. They felt that it was important to stand before their family and friends to exchange vows, make lofty, heartfelt promises to one another. And, they pointed out, it would be through the effort of their hands, making dinner, folding laundry, rubbing their lover's back after a long day. It would be through the effort of their hands that their vows would come to life and be made real. The body is where every virtue lives or dies. In Confessions, Augustine of Hippo asks, "What does love look like?" Then answers his own question. It has the hands to help others. It has the feet to hasten to the poor. It has eyes to see misery and want. It has the ears to hear the sighs and sorrows of humanity. That is what love looks like. It's through the weaving together of the soul's deep calling to compassionate and just ideals, with the body's experiences and lived commitments, that makes a spiritual life possible. Let us celebrate the moments when we feel our soul responding to the experiences of our body. Let us give thanks for the times our bodies heed the high calling of the soul, remembering that it is by uniting the physical and the spiritual will that we are inspired to transform rather than turn away from the world.
Good morning. My name is Marcia Kelly, and I've been a member of this church for over 40 years. For the past few years, there have been many things to be outraged about, and for a while I found myself floundering around in despair, not knowing where or how to devote my attention and my energy. I was waiting for that thing to capture my soul. And in November of 2018, it showed up in the form of a trip to the Greyhound bus station on a cold night. A group of activists had formed a rapid response effort to feed and assist desperate asylum-seeking families who they had discovered were passing through Charlotte on their way from detention centers in Texas to their sponsors all up and down the East Coast. They had made it through the wall, but were now facing a long legal court battle to win asylum here in our country. Wandering into the station with my friend Michael, just to check things out, we thought, we were quickly enlisted to serve food, set out clothing and toiletry articles, play with children, assist with tickets, and generally greet and hug the many Central American women, men, and children who had emerged from the bus, bewildered, frightened, and hungry. That night led to many others, and I found myself devoting both body and spirit to welcoming these strong people into our country. Our Greyhound Bus Migrant Assistance Project morphed into a group of over 1,000 members, and for a year, hardworking volunteer teams of all ages, all faiths, and all walks of life have shown up at the Greyhound station, dragging in bins of supplies, greeting and serving for 30 or 60 minutes, then returning everything to their cars. At the end of a shift, and at the peak, there were 4 shifts per day, every day. At times, a team would need to sit quietly in a corner or in a car to process what had just happened, to cry and to celebrate, and to rest their weary bodies. This was happening not just here, but all over the country, until a policy ironically called the Migrant Protection Protocols was implemented this summer, in which asylum seekers were forced to remain on the other side of the wall in Mexico to await their court hearings. And suddenly only a trickle of migrants were showing up at the station. But there are many, many loving people in this country who were still willing to place their hands and bodies in service to these families. And groups along the border from California to Texas began to mobilize. One place where this has happened on a huge scale is Brownsville, Texas, where the Gateway International Bridge links it with the Mexican border town of Matamoros. Team Brownsville, an initially small group of educators and volunteers who had been offering services in the bus station there, began to cross the bridge to feed people who were starting to set up tents as shelter as they waited their turn to cross to the courts. Over time, this tent city has become home to thousands of people. And yet, Team Brownsville and its vast network of supporters all across the country have continued to provide loving care. I was fortunate enough to witness and to join in with the serving of just one meal to 1,000 people when I joined the Myers Park United Methodist Church border trip last October. This meal involved a very long day of shopping and preparation and packing. As we filled up our wagons and began to walk through the streets of Brownsville and across the bridge, I really was moved to tears with such amazement and gratitude to know that so many people are putting their feet on the ground and their backs into service for so many others every single day, living their values, walking the talk. This crisis continues, and as long as is necessary, I know people will continue to arrive at the border wall and at other areas of crisis all around the world to provide relief and support. Marge Piercy's poem, To Be of Use, best expresses for me this coming together of body and soul that has so moved me in the past year. I love people who harness themselves, she says, an ox to a heavy cart, who pull like water buffalo with massive patience, who strain in the mud and the muck to move things forward, who do what has to be done again and again. Thank you.
If you would like to learn more about how to engage in the life of this congregation, you can peruse the offerings in the back of your order of service, or explore our website, or subscribe to our weekly e-newsletter, Currents. At 5 p.m. tonight, back here in the sanctuary, there's another opportunity to worship together. We're going to prepare our minds, bodies, and spirits for this coming Saturday's Martin Luther King Jr. Parade in Uptown Charlotte. And following the service, we are going to head downstairs to make signs for people from our congregation who are marching. And even if you can't march, you are still welcome to create a sign for people who are. And of course, for more details about how to meet up with our contingent for next Saturday's march, you can look at Currents or your order of service. There is much suffering around the world today. We are continuing to hold in our prayers all those affected by the ongoing wildfires in Australia. And we're holding with love the people all around the world this week, mourning loved ones they have lost in the attack and counterattack between our country and Iran. We send love to all those now living with a heightened sense of fear and uncertainty because of this conflict. We're sending our love to the people of Puerto Rico as they mourn loved ones and face the impossibly daunting task of rebuilding communities yet again in the aftermath of this week's earthquakes. Here in our own community, we are sending prayers to Nathan and Mary Hackenberg as Nathan recovers from surgery. We're holding in our hearts Carrie Ann Wolf as her mother faces a serious diagnosis and surgery. We're sending love to David Flynn and Debbie Rubenstein and their entire family as they mourn the death of David's father. Kate Daly and her family are in our prayers as they mourn the death of Kate's stepmother. And we hold with love all our members who are currently undergoing medical treatments. Later in the service, when the offering baskets are being passed and music is being played, all are welcome, member and visitor alike, to come forward to light a candle in honor of whatever joy, sorrow, or remembrance you carry with you this morning.
Please join me for these words of meditation and aspiration, which were written by our minister, Jay Leach, several years ago, and which were just the words I needed to hear at a difficult time in my life when bodies and spirits were at odds with each other. Make strong these legs that they may sustain me on the long journey ahead. Make open these arms that they may embrace an ever-widening circle. Make gentle these hands that they may offer a caring touch. Make sharp these eyes that they may see and take notice. Make keen these ears that they may hear life calling. Make courageous this voice that it may speak truth with dignity and honor. Make active this mind that it may know and understand. Make resolute this will that it may face disappointments and discouragement. Make deep, make very deep this heart that it may feel compassion for others, yes, but surely too for myself as well. May it be so.
We come here to join our hearts and hands in community, to pledge ourselves anew to compassionate and just action. Through this community, we transform our values and ideals into a way of life. We will now both give and receive our offering. We give thanks for that coming together of body and soul that makes it possible to bring our highest ideals to life, and every so often to twist and shout. Please remain standing.